This is the video tutorial for the Petite Stitchery Co. Embry backpack. It is going to be a free pattern. Here I am getting ready to cut all my pattern pieces out. This is the main fabric that I chose, and I'm cutting out the front and back panel of the backpack. You'll need one of each, so two of the same piece, front and back. You'll also do the same with the lining. You'll have two front and back pieces of your lining. So there is markings you'll place on your back panel piece. This is going to be where you're attaching the flap of your backpack that will close over the top of the backpack. So you'll mark those for later placement guides. Here I am going to cut out the side panels of my main fabric, and you'll need two side panels, and there will be marks on the pattern piece to transfer to your fabric, and those will be placement guides for when you sew it to your main front and back pieces in the base. So right now you'll mark those guides for later sewing. This is going to be the outside pockets. These are going on the side panels. You'll need two of those in the fabric of your choice. I chose this fabric. The top raw edge will be folded down and hemmed, and this will be going on the side panel as your pocket on the outside of your backpack. Here we're cutting out our straps. You'll need 4. If your fabric has stretch, you'll want to make sure you interface it. This is your flap. You need a main and a lining. These are your strap connectors. You'll need 4 in your main fabric. And this is your handle. You'll need 1 in your main, and you need a front cover. This is the base of your backpack. You need 1 in your main and 1 in your lining, and an interfaced piece, or an interfacing for your back panel. Here I'm cutting out all the lining pieces using my main pieces as my pattern. Now you can see I've got my strap connectors, my main and lining front and back panel, this is the main side panel, and that's the lining side panel. These are the straps. There are 4 of them. This is your piece that will go over your flap on the back, you'll see later. This is the base. No, that's the lining pocket, sorry. These are the outside pockets for the side panels, and that's your inside lining pocket that will go on the back panel. And these are your bases. So you'll have a lining, a main, and that's the interfacing for the base. This is your cover for your flap. The other piece was the handle. I misspoke. So that's your flap main and your flap lining, and there's an interfacing for it right there. If your snaps are not sew-in snaps, you'll want to apply your snaps before you sew this flap in to your backpack. So these are all the pieces, and let's go sew. Starting with the pocket for the inside of the bag with my lining fabric, and we're going to hem the top piece just like this. I serged the raw edge first And now we're going to sew it. I decided to make my inside pocket divided, so when I attached this to my inside lining, I decided to sew down the middle of this lining pocket to create two pockets, a divided pocket. You can choose to do this if you want. I did it so I could put my phone in one side. This is the lining back panel. We're going to attach the pocket to that back panel, just baste it on the sides and the bottom. Just using a long straight stitch to baste it. I'm attaching the lining base to this bottom piece of the panel, so the base is attached along one side, on the bottom side. Once it's sewn on, we're going to flip it over and top stitch our seam allowance toward the base using a 1/8 inch seam allowance and a top stitch length stitch. Just finger press your seam allowance toward the base. Actually, I guess I pressed the seam allowance to the side panel. So, there's that. Next, we're going to attach the front panel to the base of our lining fabric. Repeat the same process. Sew that, flip it over, and top stitch. Now we're going to find the center of our lining base. Just make sure you have 2 marks or notches there so that you can line up your gusset, your side panel, to that notch. The center of your side panel will match up to that center of your base. And then there's marks on the pattern pieces for where your side panel meets up next to it. You'll see here in a second. So here's your lining side panel. We're matching the center notch of your base to the center notch on your side panel. And just clip it in place, or you can use a pin. And then this will go, I'll meet it to the top of the side panel and ease it in from there. When you get to the curve, you'll probably need to cut some notches out to help ease the side panel in to the lining in the base. So here's the bottom curve I'm trying to match up, and you'll see where notches will make it easier to ease that in. The straight side is a simple sew all the way up till you get to close to the curve. Here I'm snipping my notches into my base lining. And that helped ease that curve. Sewing up the other side now. Make sure to catch your pocket in the seam. It should be basted in place, but just in case you didn't baste it. Here we're sewing around the curve of the liner, or the side panel and the base, and just easing that in all the way around. And this will have been your first side panel sewn in to the front and back front and back lining panels. You're going to repeat this for the other side. Make sure to leave a 4 to 6 inch opening on your lining, one of the long side seams, for you to turn your bag when you are done with the construction of the bag. That's going to be your turning hole. So here's the side panel on the other side of your lining fabric, matching it to the center point of your base, and then matching the top points, and then you're going to ease along the curve. Same process we just did. Leave an opening on one of those long side seams for turning at the end. Here we're getting to that last curve. We're going to ease it in. There's notches on the base panel to help ease that curve. As we make it around that last bit, don't do what I did. I sewed my opening closed because I forgot. But here on this last long run, you're going to leave an opening. So right here you should stop, back stitch, and then leave an opening, and then finish the seam at the top. So don't do what I did. Be smart. I fixed it later. So this is the inside of your bag, the lining. There will be an opening on one of the side seams. There's your base. I interfaced my base because my fabric's really slinky. Now we're moving on to the outside construction of the bag. The construction of the outside of the bag. There we go. This is your side pocket. We're just hemming the top part of the pocket opening. You can finish your raw edges with a serger or a zigzag stitch. There are 2 side pockets, one for each side panel. We're going to line these up on our side panels and baste them in place. If you notice, I changed from the pattern fabric to a solid fabric because I liked the contrast better for the side panel. So this is the side panel, basting the pocket on top of it. You can repeat it for both sides. Here's our strap connectors. You're going to sew right sides together, one side seam, turn it over, fold your raw edges in, and meet your raw edges, and then you're going to close that strap on that side. This should be a 1.5 inch width when you're finished so that it can fit through your hardware. I decided to add some extra top stitching for durability and decorative purposes. My fabric is stretchy, that's why it looks wavy. So do it to the other side. Here's our handle. You're going to fold the long edges in and then place them together to enclose your raw edges, and sew all the way down that edge. This is the handle of the bag. Again, I decided to add extra rows of stitching for durability, and it looked pretty. This fabric was stretchy, so I ended up putting some gross grain ribbon through the channel before I sewed those down to give it strength, and so it wouldn't stretch throughout the life of the bag. Here's our flap. Like I said earlier, if your snap is not a sew-in snap, you're going to want to apply your snap now so that the back edge of your snap doesn't show on your main fabric when you apply it. You'll see I did not do this. I had to put a decorative flower over my snap to cover it up, but it turned out fun. Here we're sewing the flaps right sides together, your main and your lining, all along that long round curve, leaving the top open so that you can turn it. You're going to press it once you are finished and top stitch it. You can use pinking shears or cut notches along the curve so that your curve lies nice and flat when you turn it around. So this is your strap connector piece. We loop it through the rectangle ring and baste it closed. This is going to be sewn into the backpack. I already sewed my straps together, so we're going to slide the rectangle ring with the divider, the buckle adjuster, onto the strap, leave about 1.5 inches out, fold the raw edge in and sew it down, connecting it to the bar of your strap adjuster. There's a baby hand. Now, after I sew this, I'm going to put the wrong side facing up of my strap and slide the other end of the strap through my rectangle ring of the strap connector, pull it all the way through, slide it back over the strap adjuster bar, and that piece is going to be sewn into our flap, that raw edge of the flap of the backpack. So here's the flap. This is the backpack flap facing right sides up, and our straps are right sides to the right side of the flap, and the handle as well was sewn on. You'll see here the handle was matched to the notches on the flap that were on the pattern pieces, and the straps are placed next to the handle. We basted all of this on. So that's the straps on both sides of the handle piece. We're going to get our flap cover piece right here and lay it over the top right sides together of our flap, and it wraps around the outside edge of your flap on both sides. And once you get that, you're going to sew along that raw edge. And once the raw edge has been sewn, you're going to flip that piece, that flap cover, over, and it's going to be then sewn on to the main back panel. So there is our piece. We're going to flip it over. It should all be caught in the seam. I had to go back and put the strap further in because the basting wasn't good. Anyway, I fixed it. So now we take it to our back panel and match it up to the marks that we had before from our panel. So that's the main fabric. Mark it. Those are the marks. Line it up, and you're going to sew around that rectangle, attaching the flap to the back panel. So there it is. I sewed all the way around the rectangle. And now our backpack straps are attached with our handle and our flap. And now that we have that, we can move on to attaching the side panels of our main fabric. We're also going to baste our side straps in now. So make sure your straps aren't twisted. Put that strap connector about 3/4 of an inch up from that seam, from the base and the back, about 3/4 inch up. You'll place that on both sides. Again, check to make sure your straps aren't twisted. and you can baste those in place. And then we'll go ahead and attach those side panels. This side panel, there's your pocket. You're going to place the center notches of the bottoms together just like we did on the lining. So there's your base. You'll have a center mark on your base. You'll match it to the center mark on the bottom of your side panel. Make sure all your straps are placed inside so you don't sew over them. Here I am marking the center. Also cleaning up my edges. And then we're going to do the same process that we did before. Attach the top together and the bottom, and then ease everything into the middle in the curve. So there, we're going to put a clip at the top, and then the rest is going to be eased in. That curve right there, you can snip your bottom panel to help ease that curve. So now that the side panels have been added, we're going to interface along the top of our bag all the way around. This is to provide stability for your grommets. So interface all the way around, about a 2-inch strip. Now we're going to place our lining into the backpack. Make sure your back pocket is facing the back side of your bag. Right sides together. And then you're going to line up all your seams at the top and sew along the raw edge of the top of the backpack. So matching up the seams, it should all fit together perfectly 1-to-1, and then you will sew. Here we have the top sewn along the raw edge. You're going to pull your lining out and find the opening to your lining. You gotta figure out which side it's on. Alright, so you'll birth your bag through this opening, pull the whole thing out. Now that you've flipped your bag out, you're going to finger press the top seams and get ready to top stitch around the top of your bag. Also, your lining opening, you'll want to fold your raw edges inside and sew that closed, close to the edge, or you can hand stitch it closed. Top stitch the top seam of your bag, and you're going to do 2 rows of stitching, one at the top and one about 1.5 inches down. So here's my snap. You can see I did not install it when I should have, so the back side of it showed. I ended up putting a little flower on it, but your lining or your main panel for your snap, if you are not sewing it in, you're going to want to install this pre-bag construction, unlike me. So here I am opening up the side seam and putting a piece of stabilizer behind my snap placement, and then I'm going to install the snap so that the back doesn't show on my inside of my bag. So I had to open my lining back up so I could do that. But if you do this before bag construction, obviously you don't have to worry about that. Or if you got sew-on snaps, you would just sew them on and it wouldn't show through the back. So now that we've top stitched the bag, here you can see the outside of my snap is visible. So I'm going to just interface a piece of flour from my fabric and stitch it onto the top of that snap so that you don't see it. It'll just be decorative at this point. Okay, so this is the finished bag. I didn't film putting in the grommets, but you're going to center 2 grommets on your front panel, and then you'll have 2 grommets on each side panel, about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch in on each side. So that's 6 on the front and sides, and then you'll have 2 on the back, also centered on that back panel. You'll string your drawstring through the channel that you created by sewing your top stitch line along the top and then another top stitch line about 1.5 inches down. And then you'll get, I used a toggle, but in the tutorial there are instructions for sewing a fabric guide where you'll slide each drawstring through the channel that you make, and then you'll use that to slide it up and down to tighten and loosen your drawstring. So here's the finished bag. Here's my snap closure, and just pull that down. Here's my handle, my straps. Can tighten them and loosen them as needed. And that is the Embry backpack. These are big enough to hold water bottles. I used this backpack this weekend taking my kids to the Christmas stroll on our town square, and carried all their water bottles in the bag. Inside I had my wallet tucked into this pocket, and my phone was on this side because I sewed the divided pocket. But in the tutorial they don't divide the pocket, that's just a personal preference. And then everything else, I had diapers and wipes and snacks all in here. Great little easy freebie. I hope you enjoy it.